what you want to do first of all is get 2 copies of the same track. That'll be harder if you're going to use turntables, but most people these days I expect are at least using CDJs. You burn the same track or tracks onto 2 blank CDRs. If you've, like the 400s what we got here, if you can use a hard drive or a USB flash drive, in this instance is the better option. Obviously then that's just cut and paste a track on one drive and on another drive, and you haven't really got any concerns there about using the same track. And just practice your releasing first of all in those 4/4 loops, and you can practice finding out the 8 bar and 16 bar loops. I suggest you listen to a few tracks anyway first of all, and start counting the 4/4 loops and then counting the 8 bar phrases. It's just double the 4/4 loops, 8 bars, and then obviously 16, it's a bit rarer. Sometimes, like I say, you'll find 16, trance seems to like 16 beat sections or phrases more than house does. Just practice releasing. You won't need to touch the pitch. I'll leave the pitch or the tempo just locked at 0, and just practice releasing your track within those, on time, within those 4/4 loops, and your adjustment, your pitch bend back and forward to get it locked in sync, by just using the jog wheel back and forth. Practice your release first and get that before you move on to adjusting the tempo. Then once we've done that and we've got the hang of the counting the 4/4 time and the 8, and we can pick up on the phrasing, the 8 and 16 bar loops, we can recognise that. We know where everything's going to happen on a track and where we need to release a track. Then we can get into mixing 2 different tracks together and adjusting the tempo on the fly with the jog wheel. Now obviously while the one track is playing, we get the track we're going to mix in time first and up to speed at the correct tempo beforehand, before we actually do the mix. Otherwise it will all go horribly wrong while we're trying to mix. We don't just say we're going to release the track and then we'll adjust the tempo as we're mixing, because obviously it won't happen. You'll have however many minutes left of the track that's playing to get it in sync with the speed adjust, or the tempo adjust, what's called, the pitch adjust I'm used to calling it. Obviously they've changed that now. What's it say on there? Tempo. Just call it tempo on the Pioneer, don't they? Yeah. So now when it comes to adjusting the tempo, I like to use a process of elimination. Obviously I've been doing it for years now. I've been doing it since I was about 15. I'm now 33, so I've been doing it a long time. It programmed into me. I tend to use, like I just said, a process of elimination. What that generally means is, obviously I'm listening, I'm using my ears, but say I'm listening, the track that I want to bring in is too slow, so it needs to be speeded up. So I'll speed it up to +2 on the pitch %, and it's now too fast, so now I need to slow that down. So what I do, I using the nearest hole, I'll round that up to +1, so I'll go backwards to +1. It's now too slow again, so it needs to be sped up once more. But I already know that I don't need to go +2, past +2, or past in the opposite direction +1, because the range that I'm after is automatically somewhere in between there. So all I automatically do then is halve the difference between the two, so 1.5 or +1.5, in theory that'll be, and then I listen again, and then each time then the difference gets smaller. The parameters that I know I need to be working or mixing with it, setting the tempo within, are getting smaller each time, till you're down. Especially this is more on when you've been using the CDJs or software where you've got the digital display. When you're down to the real minor adjustments, you want to start using like every 2 adjustments of the every 2 increments instead of 1, because then you automatically know if it was too slow before and you've done 2 minor increments forward and now it's still slightly faster, and you know you only have to go back one increment more backwards, and then you've found the optimum pitch that you can have. So that's a good method what I use. I'll show you basically what I'm getting at on a turntable. It'd probably be easy to look visually on I would have thought on display on a CDJ, but actually visually on the turntable you can understand more at the point I'm trying to make.
So we'll take a look at the pitch adjust, or it's called a pitch adjust on this because obviously, like I said before, it changes the pitch as well as the tempo, but these days they tend to call them a tempo slider. Anyway, it does the same thing anyway. Like we were saying before, +1%, +2, +3, +4, +5, +6, +7, +8%, and the same minus in the opposite direction. What I was talking about before, corresponding with what I was talking about before, the track was too slow, so we sped it up and rounded it up to +2. And we listened, and then it was now too fast, so we moved that up to, or back to +1. It was now too slow, so we knew that it was somewhere, the range that the optimal pitch that we're looking for, the actual BPM to match, is between the +1 and the +2. It's somewhere within that range there. So again, using the process of elimination, we halve the difference and we listen again, and then we're making minor adjustments on the, obviously it's more accurate to make minor adjustments on a CDJ because you've got the visual aspect of how far back you've got. On the turntable, I'd recommend using your thumbnail up against the thing and then bringing it back out, and the slightest gap that you make, you can touch the fader in the corresponding direction, and that's basically the process that I'll use. It's a quick way of finding the optimal pitch, as opposed to just listening and making adjustments, making adjustments. You do know that you've got a range of which to work in fairly quickly, and you do go in and out of the process very quickly to get the optimal pitch that you're after.
Now when it comes to cueing, you'll be used to seeing a DJ with the one headphone on one ear and the one headphone off the other side. Now obviously in this ear we're monitoring the track that we want to mix in, and with this ear it's open, we're listening to the track that's playing, and we're matching the tempo and releasing the track obviously at the right point in time, and that's what allows us to listen to both tracks at the same time. And that's a basic DJ monitoring. Now DJ mixers these days, the same modern DJ mixers, but they've had these techniques of monitoring or cueing for a while now. What they tend to have is what's called a split cue, and that you put both headphones on and the master is now sent to the one headphone, and you've got the other cue, the channel that you're cueing as usual is on that headphone. And what happens then is you've got the signal of both tracks that have gone through the mixer straight into your headphones, so then there's no delay by the time that that signal for that master track that's playing out has gone through the system, out through the wires to the speakers, and then travelling out from the speakers all the way back then to your ears, and then you're matching it to that delay. Instead, you're matching it in real time, exactly how both of them are coming through the system, through the mixer. That's obviously a much better way of monitoring. There's also another way of real-time monitoring, which is generally called cuemix, or cupan as they like to call it. What that does is it works a lot like how a crossfader does on a mixer when you're playing out. There's usually a rotary or a pot which turns, and then as it goes up to a 50% level, both the tracks are merged together in your headphones, either into one side, you can leave the one side on, or if you do want to put, like before, both headphones on, you'll hear both tracks mixed together in both ears. It changes, obviously, the same as a crossfader. The more you put in towards the other side, when you go towards the other side you hear the master, and when you come all the way to the left hand side of the rotary's travel, you're hearing just what you're listening to in your cue section. And 50% is both of them together, and anywhere in between there, it works just like the crossfader does. That's a good way when you say you've been mixing with your one ear off, and you got the tempo right, but you need to make sure it's properly aligned and there's no delay before opening the fader. Then you can just nip that open and just check, and then align it and make adjustments with the jog wheel. Another cueing method, 4-channel mixers will usually have different, like a switch for each channel to select that one for cueing. Some have a button like the Allen and Heath, which does the same thing. You can get away with using that to monitor 2 or more channels at once, but obviously they're all coming in at the same volume. They're all coming in at the same volume, so you have to really be, if it's too loud and there's too much going on, then that might be a problem. But that can be a good way if your mixer doesn't have a cue pan, or you've got this headphones with just the one speaker. They do sell them with just the one speaker, so you can't use split cue, and that's all the mixer has. You can use a real-time cueing by cheating and selecting 2 channels to monitor at once. Obviously you might want to press the button down, have a listen, let go again, press it down, let go again, because there might be too loud having both of them in your one ear full blast. It's just enough to get it aligned. That's one cueing tip for you. Like I said, the cueing sections generally tend to be down on the bottom left hand side. That's really the main place for them. Obviously, that many different manufacturers with mixers and different models coming out, that there's always going to be variations on a theme, especially when it comes down to things like copyrights and things like that. So the same as what I said before about on the CDJs, that your slider is usually on the right. You might find there might be the odd difference between various mixers. That's basically it for the cueing section. I'll show you on the mixers the cueing section and go over the various parts there. We'll take a look at that. Right, we'll take a look at the cueing section on the Pioneer. It's down in the bottom left hand corner. I'm not sure if I said bottom right by mistake before. If I did, I apologise. They're usually in the bottom left. Bottom left. Yeah. And Heath. And your basic cueing section, you'll have your selection to monitor which channel you want to monitor. Here you've got if you want to monitor channel 1 or channel 2, and you've also got the option to monitor the master output if you wish. This, obviously, you've got your level,
which is your volume for how loud you want your headphones to be when they're monitoring. Now this particular 2-channel mixer's real-time cueing method is split cue, which was the one where they send the master to the one headphone and you put both headphones on, and you've got the whatever channel you're monitoring in the other headphone. I'm not sure, because this is a spare mixer and I don't use this as much as I do the Alan Heath mixer, whether you're able to cheat and use another real-time monitoring method, which is to monitor channel 1 and channel 2 at once in the one headphone. If you are, then there's that on this particular mixer, but other mixers you may be able to anyway with that option. Like I say, a good amount of deal of volume is always good on a mixer. If it's a mixer that you're using to practice with at home, obviously, then it doesn't matter so much as being in a loud environment. But Pioneer and Alan Heath are both make club mixers for installations in clubs, so they're always really loud, a really loud range, should we say, of volume on their mixers. You can buy amplifiers which plug into your headphones, and then you plug them into your headphones and then the amplifier into your mixer socket, and what that does is boost the signal even more if you do need to. But Pioneer and Alan Heath usually make loud enough mixers. We move across over to the Alan Heath. We can see that there's a light here to tell you when the cue is active. I don't really pay much attention to that, as like before, most mixers don't have that. We have the cue select for each channel. When we press that, that lights up to tell us which channels are being sent to the cue into your headphones. You can select more than one at once, which is, another way that you could actually use real-time monitoring, but both or more channels will go to your headphones at full volume. That's something you might want to live with. If you've only got one headphone instead of two as per usual, they do sell DJ headphones with just the one on the one side, then that might be a way of getting around things for you. This particular mixer has the option, with its real-time cueing, of choosing whether you want to go with this split, like we mentioned before, or the cue mix or cue pan with this button. If we select the cue pan or cue mix, then with this pot here, which acts like a crossfader, we can swing from the track that we're cueing towards the track that's being monitored, which is playing out through the master. And obviously at the halfway point, just like the 50% travel on a crossfader, when you're mixing out, you've got a mix between the two tracks in one headphone, and if you put the other headphone on, it goes to the other headphone as well, exactly the same. Obviously anywhere in between there or there is more volume of the one side and less of the other, and the vice versa. The same with the crossfade, the rate of fade on a crossfader. Again, we've got our full cue volume level here. Again, Pioneer and Alan Heath make good range on the volumes. When it comes to headphone inputs, usually the size is a 1/4 inch jack on all mixers. This one has a smaller MP3 sized one as well. You can actually put two headphones in at once in here, one in the smaller jack and one in the larger jack, and listen to both at the same time. So if there's a duo, a DJ duo, they can do that. They wouldn't need to use a splitter. You may have to use an adapter from your MP3 sized headphone jack to your 1/4 inch. On the Pioneer, again, it's a 1/4 inch jack. That's on the front, Sometimes you'll have an input on the front as well. Sometimes the headphone input can be right up at the top, where this USB port is on this one. So they can be in a slot similar to this, but like similar to what you have like a 1/4 inch microphone. Sometimes there can be a headphone slot up there, so it differs slightly. That's mainly the ins and outs, the basics of the cuing mesh sections on a mixer. Now obviously when it comes to setting our cue point on a turntable, we put the stylus down, let it play, wait till we heard the first beat, stop the record with our hand and wind it back till we find and rock it forward till we find the beginning of the track. I think that's basically a basic thing that we should know and we all pick up. If you don't, then now you've just found out. With the CDJ, the process is a little bit different. Obviously you've got a vinyl mode and a digital mode on here. In the vinyl mode, the track works similar to a vinyl, like we've just talked about. And if we set our auto cue function, then it automatically cues the track that we load in. We can skip our track search just like an ordinary CD player, back and forth. We've also got our tracks search, back, forwards and backwards. We press play, it's already cued in. Pressing Q again goes back to the beginning, so it's auto cued it from the beginning of the track. So I'll press play, press pause. Now things are different. Now this puts me into a cuing. You see that the cue is flashing. Now that goes through similar to the vinyl. Section like we was talking about before, so that works similar to a vinyl. So if I now wish to set a different cue point, say there, I could check on the digital display also, because as I move the jog point backwards and forwards, that moves. So as well as listening, I know that it's there. So I can now press Q, and then that flash just there to tell me that it's now set that as my new cue point. Every time I hold Q, it will play from there, and then when I release it, it will go back to normal again. So I can use that as a preview. Obviously when I press play, I can walk away and leave it, and it will carry on playing and playing and playing from that point. Obviously when we've got it in this mode, we can search through like this with the search buttons. If we hold down our search button and spin the jog wheel, it will go even faster through the track. And then again, if we wanted to cue from wherever that is there, we could press Q again, and it would save that as a new cue point, and it would it's now playing from there. So that's how we set our cue points with a CDJ. In digital mode, and like some other CDJs that don't have a vinyl mode, it's the same procedure, but it sounds more like a stuttering loop kind of a sound. You see there, and then but you're still going through the frames on the thing, but
and then you'd press your cue again to save your cue that way. So they both work in a similar fashion, they just sound a little different. Sounds a little bit more digital that way. Obviously most people prefer the vinyl that's been gravitating from vinyl, that's used vinyl for years, like me. People that started out on the early CDJs, like mobile disc jockeys, the wedding kind of DJs and things like that, would probably prefer to use the digital mode, because that's what they're used to using on the older CDJs. So same there, horses for courses. So you got the option to use either. It doesn't matter as long as you know what you're doing with either, and you're used to picking out the beats with even with the digital one method, then it wouldn't really matter. Obviously, like I say, you don't have to use the beginning of the track when you're cueing for beat matching. First beat of a bar or phrase. It can be a track. It can be a track that you've let play for a while, and you've hit pause and you've rocked it back to searched it back to the start of the first bar of a phrase further on in a track. So that's another way you can use what we just learnt here. And we can match straight from the start of a phrase instead of from the intro of the track. That's basically it. Releasing. When it comes to releasing, I'll just go over that now. Okay, so when it comes to releasing, we're listening to the track that's playing out, and we're counting the beats. We listen to we catch on with the loops, and then we start counting so we can release. Okay, and that's a mix between the two tracks being released in 4/4 loops. That was on after 8. After 8 bars, I obviously released that one then at the start. So that's an example there as well of mixing between two tracks. We were lucky here, as the track that's playing here
didn't really need to be adjusted that much. You'll see me still moving the jog wheel back and forth. That was to get it exactly right, in alignment. Even though I didn't need to make much of adjustments with the pitch, I still needed to make an alignment with the jog wheel and align the pitch, because the release wasn't exactly on top of the beat from the other track that was playing. Okay, so I was doing that with one hand holding the camera, and I was counting, so you got the gist of what up with my fingers. 1 2 3 4 2 2 3 4 3 2 3 4 4 2 3 4 and 1. So you got the gist of what I was trying to get across. But when it comes to releasing the track in actual time, you may find it better to tap near the button with your fingers. So it'll be 1 2 3 4 2 2 3 4 3 2 3 4 4 2 3 4 1 again, and you can release then bump and you're straight off. So you're straight off there. Another trick what you can use, if you don't mind resting your one hand on the cue button while you're adjusting the tempo with your slider, is if you hold the cue down, it plays just like it would if you press the play, and you can adjust the speed and the tempo. But as soon as you let go of your finger, it jumps straight back to the beginning again. So sometimes if you like to keep setting it off from that beginning point every time you want to start mixing again, or bit matching again from another point in the track, say it's broke down and you've got to start all over again, all you need to do really is let go and you're back there again, ready to press play for when you're going to release it proper. If you prefer to, that's another tip that you can do. Other than that, really, you've got your, I've explained about auto cue, but you've got your time set to time remain. That's more useful for a DJ, as you know how much of the track is left, so it doesn't run out on you before you mix the next track in. You can set that to your time button up here. You'll have to look in your manual if you've got a different brand of CDJ or CD player. That switches the time elapsed like a normal, like your CD player on your home stereo, and then that switches it back to remain again. Some CDJs will have a waveform which shows you when a track is going to break down to just the synths or atmosphere or the that breakdown in the middle of a track, and then you've got the waves again when the beats start coming in. You don't really need that waveform. Visually it can help, but you don't really need that waveform to know when the start of the track's coming, or for the start of the piece that you want to release it on, the start of the phrase you want to release it. If you can keep that count going in your head, listening to the instruments that are playing for the breakdown, you can gather when that phrase is going to, when the new phrase will start and the track will pick up again. So you don't always need that. Sometimes some people find it helpful for cueing as well. The first beat on there sometimes. Obviously I don't have the waveforms on these, so it's not that big a deal to me. I don't really need them. Anyway. You have, if you're adjusting your pitch, you can see that down there because that is quite bright. Change the LED out myself. Put quite a bright one in there. You got your tempo range adjusts, and you've got your master tempo, which we talked about before, which keeps the track in its original key, but you start to get artifacts in the sound if you go too far on the pitch, so you're best leaving that off, I find personally. It's up to you if you don't wish to. And like I say, here we've got our tempo range. That gives you a selection between
plus or minus 6 on this one, plus or minus 10 I think it is, and then a wide range. I think with the wide, you can see that's changed there when I press it. Plus 16 watt on wide, plus or minus 6, plus or minus 10, plus or minus 16, and then wide, which goes all the way down to 100, but it's very coarse. That might, I think, not sure, I think that you can hear it change it. It goes to a halt, similar to a vinyl record, but it doesn't quite sound the same exactly. The more accurate is the plus or minus 6. You've got the plus or minus 0.02 increments there. The plus 10, I think you've only got plus 0.05% accuracy, so you're better off with the plus or minus 6%, and then you've got a higher accuracy pitch resolution for that. I think that's basically it for the basics of cueing and releasing your tracks, speeding things up and down. Like I said before, I've used a process of elimination like I showed on the turntable. So say on here we'd go up to plus 0.2. That's too fast, so we go back to the nearest hole. Plus 1, that's too slow, so I want to round that up, so it'd be around 1.5, 0.15. Obviously this is in 0.02 increments, so the closest you got to that is 1.6 or 1.4. So listen to that, it's too slow. So then you pitch it back up again. You get the idea, and that way you've got a range then which to move in about in. You know that it's not faster than X or slower than Y, and you've only got so far to go, and you're not just pitching up, pitching up, pitching up, pitching up, and using your ear until you get that what you think is right. You already know where you can't go past and where you can work within already. So I think that's basically it for basic cueing and releasing and speeding up and down.